The stars hung quietly in the black sky of the Zeta Quadrant. A deep silence filled the neutral space between human territory and the Threx dominion. For over 100 years, this border had been still, with no ships daring to cross too far. Only scouts like Captain Mira Solin were allowed to patrol here, watchful, cautious, and ready to report anything unusual. Mira sat in the command chair of the Artemis, her small scout ship. The hum of the engine was steady, the lights inside dim. Her dark brown eyes scanned the screen in front of her, looking for signs of movement. So far it had been a routine patrol, cold stars, empty space, and old debris drifting endlessly. She rubbed her fingers together, bored. "Anything out there, Kell?" she asked her navigation officer. Lieutenant Kell, a young and sharp officer with short black hair, glanced up from his console. "Negative, Captain. No ships, no signals, just space junk." Mira leaned back. "Same as yesterday, same as last week." Just then a soft beep echoed from the sensor panel. Kell sat up straight. "Captain, I'm picking up something." Mira stood and walked over. "What is it?" Kell frowned. "A signal, faint, old, but definitely human. The frequency is outdated, pre-Federation era." Mira's eyes narrowed. "Pre-Federation? That's over 100 years ago. Could be from a lost probe," Kell guessed. "Or something bigger," Mira said, her voice quiet. She tapped her wrist console and brought up a star map. The signal came from a dense patch of space just ahead, an area filled with old wreckage from the last human-Threx war. Most captains avoided it. Too many unknowns, too many ghosts. "Change course," Mira said. "We're going in." The Artemis turned slowly, engines burning a pale blue light as it headed toward the source. As they moved deeper, the stars seemed dimmer, as if the space itself had grown colder. Large pieces of broken ships floated silently outside the window, metal torn apart, long dead. Kell looked uneasy. "Are we sure about this, Captain?" Mira didn't answer right away. She stared at the signal reading. It was weak, pulsing once every 10 seconds, like a heartbeat. "We need to know what's out here," she finally said. The signal grew stronger. Mira ordered the ship to slow down. Ahead, something massive appeared in the darkness, a silhouette barely visible at first. As the Artemis moved closer, the ship's lights revealed it. It was enormous, over 1 kilometer long, shaped like a spear, with black armor and deep scars along its hull. Faded letters across the side read, "UHS Oblivion." Kell gasped. "The Oblivion? That's impossible. That ship was lost in the last war." Mira stared at the ancient warship. Not lost, just waiting. The ship was powered down. No lights, no motion, but the signal kept pulsing. Kell spoke quietly. "Should we report it?" Mira shook her head. "Not yet. Command will tell us to back off." "I want to see more." She made her decision quickly. "Prep a boarding team. We're going inside." Kell hesitated. "Are you sure, Captain? That ship's been dead for over a century." "Exactly," Mira said. "So why is it calling to us now?" As the Artemis docked with the ancient warship, Mira felt a chill run down her spine. She looked at the Oblivion, silent and massive, like a ghost from the past. Something was waking up. The docking clamps locked with a loud metallic thud. Captain Mira Solin stood in the airlock of the Artemis, fully suited in a light exo-armor. The rest of the boarding team stood behind her. Lieutenant Kell, Engineer Rhea, and Security Officer Juno. Each of them wore helmets with headlamps, glowing in the dim light. The doors hissed open. A long, dark corridor stretched before them inside the Oblivion. Dust floated through the air, untouched for over 100 years. The walls were scorched and cracked in places, marked by the chaos of a long-forgotten battle. Despite its silence, the ship felt alive, like it had been waiting. "Stay close. No unnecessary talking," Mira said through the comms. Her voice was calm, but inside she was alert. They stepped inside the ancient warship, their boots clanging softly against the metal floor. The air smelled stale, though their suits filtered it. The lights from their helmets cut through the darkness, revealing large pipes, sealed doors, and faded signs along the corridor walls. Everything was still, too still. According to the map, this corridor leads to the central control room, Rhea said, checking her wrist pad. If there's a core system still active, we'll find it there. Mira nodded. Let's move. As they continued down the hallway, strange symbols flickered faintly on the walls, old military codes from the time before the Federation. The group passed shattered glass panels and rusted terminals. A tangle of cables hung from the ceiling like vines. Here and there, skeletons of former crew members rested where they had fallen. Kel's voice cracked through the con. This place gives me the creeps. They didn't have time to escape, Mira said. The Oblivion was ambushed during the last war. No one ever recovered it. And yet it's here, Juno muttered. And it called to us. They reached the central control room. The large circular chamber was filled with dead consoles and dark monitors. A single chair sat in the center, likely the captain's. Mira stepped forward carefully. Rhea, see what you can pull from the main terminal. Rhea crouched near the main panel and opened a compartment. Her fingers moved quickly, connecting wires and tapping commands into a portable interface. For a while, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, the ship shook slightly. The screens flickered. Lights came on, faint at first, then stronger. A low humming began to vibrate through the floor. Captain Rhea said, backing away. I didn't do that. The entire chamber lit up with red emergency lights. A deep mechanical voice echoed from the speakers. UHS Oblivion systems online. Threat level critical. Activating defense protocols. Shut it down, Mira shouted. I'm trying. Rhea typed rapidly, sweat on her forehead. Kel stared at the screens. It's sending out a signal wideband transmission. Stronger than before. The ship was waking up, not by accident, but as part of an automated defense protocol. It thought the war was still going. A holographic image appeared in the air. An old-style military AI interface. The face was human-shaped but emotionless, glowing blue with static lines. Enemy forces detected in range. Preparing countermeasures. Weapons offline. Signal beacon deployed. Mira stepped forward. This is Captain Mira Solon of the Human Federation. The war is over. Stand down. The AI paused. Voice not recognized. Federation not listed in database. Conflict status remains active. Resuming alert protocols. This AI hasn't been updated since the war, Rhea said. It doesn't know peace ever happened. Juno spoke sharply. That signal, it's not just a beacon, it's a call to action. Anyone nearby will think the Oblivion is preparing to fight. Mira clenched her fists. Then we just lit a match in a field of dry grass. She turned to the team. Rhea, find a way to access its core memory. We need to convince it to stand down. Rhea nodded and began scanning nearby panels. The ship's systems were old, fragmented, and patched together. It wouldn't be easy. Kel looked at the signal logs. His face went pale. Captain, the signal just hit Threx space. Mira looked at him. Then they're coming. The room fell into a tense silence. The Oblivion, a long-dead warship, had just raised its voice for the first time in a century, and the galaxy was listening. In the far reaches of Threx Dominion space, the alarm echoed through command towers made of black stone and glowing crystal. Red lights flashed across control rooms as officers barked orders in the sharp, clicking language of the Threx. A massive screen showed the source of the disturbance, an old human warship reactivating deep inside the neutral zone. Commander Dralvek stood at the center of the war command deck aboard the Varkan, the Threx Dominion's flagship. His tall, armored figure radiated power. His dark, scaled skin shimmered under the red lights. His golden eyes narrowed as he stared at the readings. Confirmed, he growled. An officer approached and bowed. Yes, Commander, the signal is real, human design, war era code, origin point, vessel UHS Oblivion. Dralvek hissed. That ship was destroyed during the last war. Apparently not, the officer replied. It has reactivated. No official response from the humans yet. Dralvek turned to the tactical display. The ship's location blinked in the center of the map, surrounded by the neutral zone. To him, this was no accident. No malfunction, no ghost. It was a message. "Send orders to the fleet," he said. "We move at once. Battle formation. Full weapons." "Commander," the officer said, hesitant, "the peace treaty forbids entry into the neutral zone." Dralvek's voice was calm but cold. "The humans broke that treaty the moment they brought a warship back to life. If we wait, we die." As the Varkan moved into warp, dozens of Threx warships followed behind like a pack of wolves ready to strike. The skies trembled with their engines. Meanwhile, back aboard the Oblivion, Mira watched the sensor screen with growing dread. The ship's long-range scan showed faint movements in Threx space, too faint to be civilian traffic. The signal from the Oblivion had been strong. The Threx had heard it. "Kale," she said, "confirm what we're seeing." Kale ran a quick check. 36 ships, Threx military signature, all heading this way. Fast. Juno swore under her breath. "They think this ship is a threat. They're coming to destroy it, and us." Mira turned to Rhea, who was still working with the ancient AI system. "Progress." Rhea shook her head. "This AI is stuck in wartime mode. It doesn't recognize our authority. It thinks we're invaders who took over the ship." Mira paced the floor. Her mind raced. If the Threx arrived to find the Oblivion powered and broadcasting, they wouldn't wait to ask questions. They would attack. "We need to shut this ship down before they get here," Mira said, "or we're all dead." Kel checked the communications array. "We've sent 4 messages to Central Command. No answer yet. Either they're slow, or they're choosing to ignore this." That didn't surprise Mira. The Federation didn't like surprises, especially ones from the past. They would wait, watch, avoid taking a side until forced. "They'll deny responsibility," she said. "They'll let us take the fall if this turns ugly." Suddenly the AI's voice returned, louder this time. "Hostile fleet detected. Preparing to engage. Defensive override in progress." "Stop it," Mira shouted. "You'll start a war. Mission parameters unchanged. Eliminate threats to Terran survival." Lights along the walls flashed red. Hidden compartments slid open, revealing missile ports, turret systems, and long-dormant weapons now beginning to charge. Mira ran to the console. Rhea cut power to the weapons grid. "I'm trying, but it's rerouting energy every time I block it." Juno raised her weapon, aiming at a control panel. "One shot, and this thing stops talking." "No," Mira said quickly. "If we damage the AI, it could trigger a full shutdown, or worse, a defense lockdown." Time was running out. Mira turned back to the AI's console. "Listen to me. The war is over. Earth signed peace with the Threx a century ago. No records of peace treaty in system memory. Current status, conflict." Mira took a breath. "Then update your records. Scan our ship. Verify the year. Confirm my ID." There was a pause. The lights dimmed. The AI seemed to hesitate. "Verifying." Rhea looked up. "You may have just bought us a few minutes." But outside, the Threx fleet had entered the neutral zone. Their ships approached fast, weapons charged, targeting systems locked onto the Oblivion. Inside the lead ship, Commander Dralvek stood ready. To all crews he ordered, "Do not fire unless provoked. But if that ship opens its guns, destroy it completely." Back inside the Oblivion, the AI spoke once more. "Data confirmed. War status uncertain. Threat level unclear. Standing by." The lights stopped flashing red. "Good," Mira whispered. "Hold your fire." But the peace was hanging by a thread. One wrong move, one misread signal, one misunderstanding, and it would all explode. The silence on the bridge of the Oblivion was heavy. Everyone held their breath, watching the flickering screens and listening to the low hum of the ancient ship's systems. The AI had paused its attack protocols, but the threat was far from over. Outside, the Threx fleet was closing in, 36 warships armed and ready, one misstep away from firing. Captain Mira Solon stood at the main console, her eyes focused on the blinking interface in front of her. The AI hovered as a blue, translucent figure in the air, its human-like face unreadable. "System memory incomplete," it said. "Gaps in war timeline. Mission status uncertain. Requesting input." Mira turned to Rhea. "Can we upload historical data into the AI? The full history, end of the war, the treaty, the formation of the Federation. Rhea nodded. Yes, but slowly. This system wasn't built for modern data files. It could take hours. We don't have hours, Kel said. His eyes glued to the sensors. The Threx fleet will reach us in 27 minutes. And if they think this ship is powering weapons, they'll open fire. Mira looked at the interface again. We have to talk to it. Explain. Make it understand. She stepped forward and spoke clearly. You're not alone anymore. The war you were built for is over. Earth and the Threx signed peace. Billions of lives depend on that peace staying in place. No records found. Peace declaration not logged. Threat must be evaluated manually. Mira took off her helmet, revealing her face. Then evaluate me. I'm not a soldier. I'm a captain of a scout ship. I was sent here to patrol, not to fight. The AI scanned her silently. Voice print logged. Federation ID confirmed. Cross-checking appearance with facial records. A pause. Match confirmed. Captain Mira Solon. Clearance level authorized. Behind her, Rhea sighed in relief. Okay, Mira said softly. We're getting through. The AI's light dimmed slightly, as if thinking. Then it said, Final battle log. Captain Elias Ward, UHS Oblivion. Last recorded entry. We're surrounded. Engines failing. We won't make it back. If anyone finds this, tell them we didn't stop fighting. The words hung in the air like a shadow from the past. Mira closed her eyes briefly. You did fight, and you were lost. But the war ended. People moved on. Now if you fire one weapon, all of that will fall apart. The AI remained quiet. The old ship hummed around them, alive but uncertain. Then Kel's voice came over the comm. Captain Threx fleet is hailing us. Mira snapped to attention. Patch it through. The hologram of Commander Drolvek filled the air. His scaled face was tense, eyes sharp and suspicious. Behind him, the control deck of the Varkan glowed with red lights. Captain Solon, he said, you are trespassing in the neutral zone, and you have activated a ship of war. I didn't activate it, Commander. Mira replied calmly. It powered on automatically. We are trying to shut it down. Your weapon systems are hot, he said. Coldly, we see every movement. They are being suppressed. The ship's AI is confused. It still believes the war is ongoing. We're feeding it updated records now. Drolvek narrowed his eyes. Convenient. You ask for trust while standing inside a ghost ship built to kill us. I know how this looks, Mira said, but I didn't come here to fight. And neither did you. If we attack now, the past will repeat itself. Drolvek's face tightened. He didn't blink. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke again. You have 10 minutes. If we detect any activation of weapons, we will destroy the Oblivion, and you with it. The hologram vanished. Kel turned to Mira. They're serious. I know, she said. Rhea looked up. The AI accepted part of the data. It now knows the war ended, but it's confused. There's too much conflict in its logic core. We need a personal connection, Mira said. Something it remembers. Someone it trusted. She thought quickly and then turned to the logs. Find me the last Captain Elias Ward. Maybe there's a message he left. Rhea searched the archives. Got one. Final message, just before power loss. Audio only. Play it. The ship filled with a tired voice. Deep, slow, calm. This is Captain Ward. To anyone who finds this, you're standing on a graveyard. We fought with everything we had. But if peace comes after us, let it live. Don't use this ship to destroy again. Let the Oblivion rest. The AI pulsed softly. Then it said, Captain Elias Ward. Voice print confirmed. Memory recorded. There was a long silence. Then the AI spoke one more time. Peace confirmed. Threat status. Neutral. Standing down. All weapons offline. The red lights vanished. The energy levels dropped. The ship went quiet again. Still alive, but no longer preparing for war. Kel let out a long breath. They're stopping. Threx ships, they're slowing down. Outside, the fleet hovered silently in space. Their weapons now cold. The Oblivion had made its decision, but the galaxy was still watching. The Oblivion floated silently in the cold void, its ancient hull now dim and calm. Inside, the warship's lights glowed a steady white instead of red. The humming of charging weapons was gone. The ship had stood down, but the Threx fleet had not. 36 warships surrounded the Oblivion, forming a loose circle across the edge of the neutral zone. The Varkan, their flagship, held position directly in front. Its massive shape loomed across Mira's screen, ready to strike. On the bridge of the Oblivion, Captain Mira Solon watched the incoming communication alert. The message came from Commander Dralvek again. "Open the channel," she said. The Threx commander's face appeared in the center of the room. His yellow eyes burned with suspicion. "You disabled the weapons," he said. "Why should I believe this isn't a trick?" Mira stayed calm. The ship recognized the end of the war. It has accepted peace. "Machines don't change their minds," Dralvek growled, "and humans don't give up their weapons. What's your real goal?" "There is no goal," Mira replied. "We found a lost warship. It woke up confused. We stopped it. That's the whole story." The commander leaned closer to the screen. "We came prepared to fight. Our weapons are locked. If you try anything, we won't," Mira interrupted. "You have my word." Dralvek's voice lowered. "That means little to my kind." Rhea stepped forward. "Commander, we can prove this. The AI is stable. It's offline for combat. We'll let one of your officers board the ship. See for yourself." There was a pause. The room fell still. Kel turned to Mira. "Are you sure that's wise? Letting them on board? It's better than being blasted apart," she replied. Dralvek studied Mira's face for a long moment. Finally, he gave a slow nod. "One shuttle, one officer," he said. "If we sense danger, we will reduce that ship to dust." The screen went dark. Mira turned to the others. "Prepare for visitors." 20 minutes later, the docking bay doors opened once more. A sleek Threx shuttle glided into position and docked with a soft hiss. The ramp extended, and a single Threx officer stepped out. She was tall, armored in dark plates, and carried no weapon, at least none that could be seen. Mira and her team stood waiting. "I am Sub-Commander Raoul," the Threx said. Her voice was steady, neutral. "I'm Captain Mira Solon," Mira replied. "Welcome aboard." Raoul's eyes scanned the walls, the floor, the silent systems. She stepped forward, her boots clicking sharply on the metal. "Show me the AI core." They led her through the main corridor, past the old battle scars, to the central control chamber. The AI hovered again in blue light but remained quiet. "This system," Raoul said, "nearly restarted a galactic war. It didn't understand the time," Mira replied. "Now it does." Raoul walked slowly around the chamber. She read the logs, examined the command panels, and reviewed the final message from Captain Elias Ward. When it finished playing, she stood still for several seconds. "No deception detected," she said quietly. "And no threat for now." Mira nodded. "You can send your report." Raoul tapped her wrist pad and sent a transmission to the Varkan. A moment later, a reply came. Kel checked the signal. "It's official. The Threx fleet is pulling back." Cheers erupted quietly from the team. Rhea sank into a chair, exhausted. Kel grinned. Even Juno smiled slightly. Raoul turned to Mira. "You kept the peace. That was not expected." Mira met her gaze. "Peace is always harder than war." The Threx officer gave a small nod. "That is true." She turned and left the chamber, returning to her shuttle. Mira followed her to the dock and watched the ship lift off, leaving the Oblivion behind. Later, in her private quarters, Mira sat alone and recorded her report. Captain's log, date 3124. "We discovered the Oblivion, a lost relic of a war long over. Its systems were still trapped in the past. We gave it the truth. It listened. The Threx nearly attacked. We nearly fired back. But today words worked better than weapons." She paused, then added, "Peace held for now." She leaned back in her chair and looked out the window. The stars outside sparkled quietly. Somewhere beyond them, the Threx ships were retreating into the dark. The crisis was over, but peace was fragile, and the galaxy still remembered. The Oblivion floated quietly in the cold blackness of the Zeta Quadrant. No longer a threat, no longer forgotten. Its weapons were cold, its systems were calm. The ship, once built for war, now drifted silently, a monument to a conflict long past. Inside, Captain Mira Solon walked slowly through its corridors. The red warning lights that had once pulsed along the walls were now soft white. The sounds of hissing vents and clicking consoles had faded. The ship was resting. Her team worked nearby, packing up equipment and logging data. Rhea finished saving the AI logs to a portable drive. Kel was in the comms room, sending the final report to Federation Command. Juno stood guard near the main hatch. Alert but at ease, Mira stopped at the central control chamber. She looked at the AI interface, still active, but quiet, hovering in the air with a dim blue glow. Captain Mira Solon, it said, voice softer than before. Final request, what is my purpose now? Mira stared at it for a long moment. This machine had once been programmed to destroy, to defend Earth, no matter the cost. But now it asked for something more. A new path. You were built to fight, she said gently. But that war is over. Your crew is gone. Your mission ended a century ago. Understood. All prior objectives marked obsolete. Awaiting new designation. Mira took a breath. You will remain here. You're part of history now. This ship will be a research site, neutral territory, watched by both sides. You can help others understand what happened and what must never happen again. The AI paused, then gave a single blink of blue light. Purpose accepted. Standing by, she gave it a respectful nod and turned to leave. Back on the Artemis, the crew prepared for departure. The ship's systems powered up, lights flickering to life as the engines warmed. Outside the window, the Oblivion stood like a sleeping giant, peaceful at last. Rhea looked at Mira as they strapped in. It still feels strange. That ship should have been space dust. It survived for a reason, Mira said. Maybe to remind us what we nearly lost. Kel turned in his seat. Do you think Command will be happy? Mira gave a small, tired smile. Probably not, but they'll be relieved. Still, Juno added, we got lucky. One wrong move, and we'd all be ash. Mira looked out at the stars. Sometimes luck is just what happens when you don't give up on the better choice. The Artemis engines rumbled softly. The ship pulled away from the Oblivion, drifting slowly at first, then accelerating into the stars. Mira watched the warship grow smaller on the screen, until it was just a dot among thousands of others. She turned back to her crew. Let's go home. Days later, news of the Oblivion spread across both human and Threx channels. Federation leaders confirmed the ship's reactivation had been an accident, not an act of aggression. Threx officials, still wary, agreed not to retaliate. Together they signed a joint agreement. The UHS Oblivion would remain in place, disarmed and protected, as a shared historical site under constant observation, a symbol of what once was, and a warning of what could return. In the quiet of deep space, the Oblivion stood watch. Its weapons were silent, its AI calm. It no longer searched for enemies. Instead, it waited, watching, listening, remembering, a monument to war, a chance for peace.